How you guys doing? We're back with the Position Value podcast. Today we're going to be talking about the intersection between pop culture and business, and I think we have some good topics for you guys. So to start off, I think I want to just do a little bit of a reaction to the UFC fight last night, and we can talk about McGregor a little bit. There were a bunch of good fights, but really the main business moneymaker was that McGregor-Poirier fight. I was hoping to have a little bit more of a talk about it, right? But I guess the fight itself was not as good as we all wanted it to be. McGregor broke his leg pretty much in half, his ankle. From what I understand, though, McGregor broke that ankle for a $3 million purse plus 60% of pay-per-view, which I can only imagine was probably in the $50 million range. $70 per buy. How many people do you think bought it?
I think his total comp was 13 million plus sponsorships and outside deals. So in total, he'll probably make 50 mil in the long term across everything. But his initial comp was about 13.
Yeah, you looked that up? Like you've seen sources?
Instagram.
Okay.
Instagram.
I'll break my ankle for 13 million.
I'll do it twice.
2 ankles, won't be able to walk.
Hell yeah. I won't walk for 2 years. I will sit in a wheelchair for 2 years for 13 mil. Swear to God.
I would probably do that as well.
I sit all day anyway.
That's true. Yeah. I guess you really are in a wheelchair. Talking about sitting all day, I'm convincing my job to get me a standing desk because apparently standing burns an extra 100 calories to 150 calories per like 3 hours or something.
It's not worth the mental energy. The mental energy you're going to expend on a standing is not worth the mental energy of burning 100 calories.
I'm not on a treadmill. I'm just standing because, dude, when your back hurts and you're sitting all day.
Well, if you have a back problem, you have a back problem. But if you don't have a back problem, you're going to expend more mental energy than like the caloric burn is worth, in my opinion.
Yeah, you burn extra mental calories too. So let's get back to money in UFC here. I guess a big one for McGregor. I didn't see any Proper 12 sponsorships on the UFC ring this time, right?
Yeah, that's because he sold Proper 12.
Yeah.
I think an reported $600 million. Yeah, it's not his job anymore. If he had commission, if he had royalties, if he had equity, he would have promoted it, but he just sold it off for a reported 600 mil. I mean, why would he promote it when he could promote other stuff? So I think he's still promoting McGregor Fast, which is something we should definitely talk about. And he has multiple other businesses like clothing, which he's always promoting it indirectly. But Proper 12, I think he sold it off with zero royalty or commission. And I think he did that intelligently because I'm going to safely assume that the sales of Proper 12 correlates with his win-loss record. And since he's been losing a lot lately, well, not a lot by volume, but a lot in severity, I think he forecasted that the sales of Proper 12 wouldn't generally grow. So to him, it would have been a better idea just to sell it for $600 million, which is a brilliant acquisition. Maybe he does get royalties on the side. It would be really smart for the company to do some sort of split where he gets like 1% of royalties or something of the sort. I think it's definitely worth it until like his lifetime royalty. And when Conor passes away, he doesn't get the 1% anymore. I think that's a great deal. Conor isn't going anywhere, but I don't think he promoted Proper 12 because Conor's the type of guy who always wants skin in the game because he's a smart businessman and he doesn't have skin in the game or a lot of it. So it just wasn't worth it for him. But one thing that was promoted heavily was Dustin's hot sauce. And we could definitely talk about that too, because I did a sales analysis of his hot sauce yesterday.
Awesome. Skin in the game, right? I think they had like a little analysis right before the fight of the highest paid athletes in 2020. And I think they said McGregor made $180 million, which is skin in the game if it's ever skin in the game, right? So yeah, let's talk about Poirier's hot sauce. I'm actually very curious to see. I'm probably going to wind up buying it. I didn't even really know of Poirier before last year. Right, I wasn't a huge UFC follower as much as I watched the big fights. Sounds like I'm going to be buying some hot sauce.
As of yesterday, I checked before the fights because I wanted to see where it's at yesterday. Dustin's hot sauce is number 581 in the food category on Amazon, which is very high. If you are the number 581 top sold food product on Amazon, you're bringing in cash. So yesterday I checked 581. So let's check Dustin hot sauce Amazon. It went from number 581 before the fights. Guess what number it's at? 309. It's Sunday morning. In a day that is huge.
What's the projected like number of sales or I guess revenue off of that much of a jump? Probably.
I'll tell you right now. We are using Jungle Scout Amazon software. Make sure to sponsor us, Jungle Scout. I do a lot of e-commerce work. It would be wise of you to sponsor us. If you are in 309th place, how many do you sell if you're in 300th place?
Monthly? 500,000 units.
No, definitely not. 13,500.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
13,000.
Overestimating the food category.
No, that's not a bad guess, but that guess would be in the top 50, probably, not in the top 300. Keep in mind, it's not 300 on Amazon. It's 300 in food in the United States. So Amazon is global. So 300th place in the United States States in one category, 500,000 would be really high, but 13,500 is very reasonable.
What does he
So
sell it for?
he sells it for two products, one for $40 and the other one is for much less. I don't even know how much the first one costs because it's currently unavailable. I'm pretty sure it was available yesterday. Assuming he makes about $20 per sale.
It's a lot of money. It's about 60 grand a month.
So 270K in monthly revenue, selling 13,500 units. I assume it's around, let's say $15 per sale. So the current sales rate is 200K a month for his hot sauce on Amazon. He also has a personal website and he might be selling it in retail and he might be selling it on other websites like Walmart and eBay.
So I have a question from the business logistics standpoint, right? I was actually listening to a book that made me think about this question. Stocking up versus waiting for the orders to come in, right? So in Dustin Poirier's case, you're fighting somebody who more than likely you kind of know you're going to beat and where you know you're going to have 500,000 pay-per-view buys at a minimum. Do you buy more before the fight? Or do you think he just didn't realize how many people were going to buy his hot sauce? Because how do you sold out on one of the most important days of your life, right?
Generally speaking, he didn't sell out. He just sold one product on Amazon. The other product isn't sold out. The package deal isn't sold out. And I haven't really checked his other websites. I assume we could double his sales from 200 to 400. So he might be at a 400K a month sales. Obviously, that's not profit. That's just revenue. Usually for most e-commerce and retail stuff, it's safe to say that he has a bunch in a warehouse. And the reason why it's outsold is because the warehouse depleted. Dustin isn't wealthy. He probably doesn't have any investors lined up to order like more inventory. He's probably not the most business savvy person around. I hope he makes between all the websites, between retail, because I wouldn't be surprised if there's some places in Louisiana that's selling his hot sauce on the shelves. Hopefully he does a strong 500K in sales this month. And that's going to taper off if there's going to be, so if I was Dustin Poirier, I would definitely do part 4. Him versus Charles isn't going to make that much money. He needs to do part 4 with Conor. And if he needs to do part 5 and part 6, as long as people keep watching, he should keep fighting Conor. Dustin is young. Conor is young. Charles isn't going anywhere. The lightweight belt isn't going anywhere. Dustin should fight Conor again and use this foot as an excuse for fight. It's a perfect excuse for part 4. And if he beats Conor, he's going to probably hit with 1 million sales a month.
I have a slightly different take on that. I think, obviously, I agree. You fight Conor until it's a stupid idea and the fans hate you for it. But even though the payout of the championship fight with Oliveira might not make him as much money, someone like me who watches 1, maybe 2 weekends a month, on average, on once every other month, I'm going to watch that fight. Just because now you know who Dustin Poirier is going to get at least the exposure, I think. Maybe the pay-per-view is cheaper. Maybe he only gets a quarter of the buys, so he doesn't make as much on his purse and as much on his pay-per-view salary. But for exposure, it's a no-brainer. Why would you not do it, right? Now you're the best lightweight fighter in the world.
He's already the best lightweight fighter currently present, not of all time, definitely not. Khabib is the all-time GOAT for lightweight. Dustin Poirier should fight Conor again because he's just not going to make the money he's going to make with Charles. People understand. People generally think Dustin is the best lightweight right now. Pretty much nobody thinks Charles is the best. Nobody thinks Charles is particularly better than Dustin. He should do part 4 with Conor. Unless Conor's foot is damaged, then he should go for the belt.
Well, I mean, Conor, I'm not a doctor. I have no idea. His foot was detached from the bottom of his leg. He's not coming back to the sport for the rest of this year.
We'll see. You never know. It could be anything. It could be a light fix. It could be a quick fix. He has the best doctors and surgeons in the world. We'll see what happens. Chances are no. I would not gamble on it. I guess maybe Dustin hopefully gets the belt and then Conor fights Nate. If Conor beats Nate, he needs to beat one more other person before he gets the belt and then fights Dustin. It would not be fair if Conor gets the belt right after beating Nate Diaz.
Honestly, though, what you just said kind of made sense. McGregor, everyone knows as the champ of more than one weight class. So you come back maybe 6-8 months from now, you fight Nate Diaz and you win. But in that meantime, Poirier fought Oliveira and beat him. Now, part 4 is for the belt. It might not go down that way. Poirier might have to fight it to retain his belt one more time. But there's a good chance at part 4, now that you're saying that, will be for that belt if there ever is a part 4.
It wouldn't make sense. If Conor beats Nate, if he should fight one more time before getting the belt, you can't fight Nate Diaz and then get the belt.
Oh, I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
That would be so messed up.
So let's say on the topic of fighting, I want to just a little bit different type of fighting, boxing. I think me and you discussed it briefly, and I just want to touch on like the business aspect of it. So we know Jake Paul, we know Logan Paul. But then there's been trickles from the bottom up with Bryce Hall, other TikTokers. The question is, why do these influencers want to be boxers? Other than money, right? Obviously, I guess it's mostly about money. But what's your take on it?
It's 100% about the money. The main thesis is the money. If the money wasn't there, everything else will fall apart. 90% of the reason is fighting. Part two is respect. Psychologically, humans are way more respectful of fighters. It's just how we are. When we see a person risking their physical health for glory or their career, we respect them way more. 99% of the reason why influencers box is because of the money. Let's get that clear. Number two, far, far below is the respect, in my opinion. That's just my opinion, my analysis of it. But if the money wasn't there, nobody would box. The reason why influencers are so attracted to boxing, I think, is because influencing social media industry is a very volatile, very unstable, very rapidly changing industry. It's extremely difficult to make money. So sometimes merch sales are up, sometimes merch sales are down. Sometimes AdSense is up, sometimes they're completely demonetized. Notice that a lot of people who go into boxing are people who are particularly controversial and maybe don't make that much ad money. So sponsor money isn't the most stable thing. These influencers, they make a lot of money, but it's very unclear, unstable money. One month they'll make 80K, the other month they'll make 20K, and etc. If their views and subscribers go down, the revenue will dry up or decrease rapidly. And sponsors are extremely fickle. If there's one controversial event, 90% of your sponsors will dip. Boxing is much more forgiving and more inviting to controversial figures. They're very attracted to boxing because boxing is a very simple business. The more views and controversy, the more money you make, period, end of story. So a lot of these boxers are interested in boxing is primarily because of the money, but it's not just regular money. It's very simple, straightforward money. More views, more controversy, more drama, more money. Not only that, you can forecast the money very easily. So if I have this amount of drama, I'm going to sell 100,000 pay-per-views and I'm going to make X amount of money. It's extremely simple money. It's very easy to predict. So like Logan Paul, he'll make 50K off this sponsor, 30K off this advertiser, 20K off merch here and there. But Logan Paul says, I'll sell 1 million pay-per-views, I'll make 20 million bucks. Simple, easy, fast money compared to the other stuff they do.
So let's stay on the topic of Logan Paul and controversial, like people in general, right? So this is more from a business standpoint, right? I did not watch Logan Paul until March of 2020. When I'm sitting in my house in the middle of a pandemic and David Dobrik decides not to post YouTube videos anymore, Logan Paul came in my recommended. Do you know that I spent probably 9 months to a year never seeing a single sponsored video from Logan Paul because of his controversy? He did not promote any products, right? Even in his podcast. And he mentioned it once or twice because of the things that happened to him in his past. He was denied for an extensive amount of time. Logan Paul was not allowed, basically. He was barred from the content sponsor industry in general. And then he becomes a boxer. Obviously, he cleaned up his act, right? Just like any mature adult does as they get older. But now you become a boxer and now you're rubbing shoulders with Floyd Mayweather. And all of a sudden, I'm watching his podcast the last 3 or 4 weeks, 5 weeks, and he has one sponsor. Then he has two. Now I watch a podcast and he has 6, 7 sponsors. Business obviously is based on controversy, but it could hurt you. Any amount of publicity it seems that these influencers get from boxing reaps benefits everywhere, literally every aspect of their life.
Yeah, but it's clear that his main goal right now is boxing. Like his main focus right now is boxing. So him and Jake, they're in Puerto Rico training probably 4 hours a day. And that, I think, if money in boxing wasn't so simple, easy to predict, and the profit margins were thick, with sponsors and advertisers and merch, the profit margins are probably not as thick. But in boxing, it's so simple. Buy pay-per-view, get a percentage of pay-per-view. I think the most important thing to them, whether they admit it or not, is how simple, clean, thick, and easily predictable the money is. I think his biggest payday of his life was the boxing fight. I think both of their biggest paydays come from boxing. And Jake was quoted telling Dave Portnoy, man, that's what I love about this business. It's so simple. You don't got to worry about advertisers and sponsors and YouTube, algorithm, this or that. Easy. And the cool thing about boxing is that controversial figures are invited.
So what it sounds like is that you and I should start the low follower count, out of shape, persistent value boxing tournament.
Yeah, I think for sure. I think that's a great idea. I think there's a lot of niches we can go into.
Just a bunch of lumpy dudes throwing fists at each other.
I think that's a great business. It's an extremely difficult business. I personally like to focus on internet companies and stuff like that. I like to focus on digital and internet-based businesses. But maybe that's something I'll go into. But I'm not too interested in businesses that have geographic constraints.
We've been talking about Conor McGregor, and you mentioned Conor having a new business. So from your point of view, I guess tell all of the listeners and also myself what this new business is, what it's called, How do you think he makes his money? Just give us the rundown.
Let's analyze Conor McGregor's businesses. So we analyzed his whiskey business. So he sold it for 600 mil. I don't know how much revenue that whiskey business made. I'm going to assume he didn't profit 600 million. So the whiskey business profited significantly less than 600 million. But keep in mind, those numbers are reported. They're not real numbers. They might be real numbers, but I'm not 100% sure they're verified. Rarely is this stuff verified. It's just the media. So let's say he did sell it for 600 million, which might not be true. That business probably did profit of way less than 60 million, 600 million. Maybe he did a profit of 60 million, something of the sort. So that's very impressive and believable. I do believe that business would do 60 million profit in a year. That's very believable. But let's take a deep dive into his other businesses. Let's start from my least favorite to my most favorite. Obviously, he does fighting. I don't even think fighting makes him the most amount of money. His fighting is his main source of advertising. So the better his fighting, the better his advertising, right? And a business is just 50% sales and 50% product. So fighting is like 50% of his business, metaphorically speaking. So fighting is very important to him business-wise, because the better his fights, the more money he makes by large margins, I would guess. So his other business, one, he has the fashion business. He has August McGregor. I have no idea how much money that business makes.
What did you say the business was called?
August McGregor. He just sells clothes in general.
Who is August McGregor?
Pretty sure August is a prominent fashion designer that Conor is fond of and he works with. So that's his main business partner. I think he specializes in creating suits. So I think August is a suit maker primarily. Conor, he has beautiful clothing line. The problem with his clothing line is just way too flashy for me, but it's fantastic clothing. And he has a lot of traffic on August McGregor's website. It's the 257,000 most popular website in the world and 83,000 most popular website in the United States. That is a very high number. To be number 257 on Earth is very impressive. That means you have a very strong web presence. And so he definitely makes, I'd say, 7 to 8 figures in sales with his apparel. I don't think he does 9 figures. He might hit 7 figures a month. I don't think he hits 8 figures a month based on his traffic. And the prices of his products is very high. Like a suit jacket would be $500, pants would be $80, a sweater would be like $150. So he charges a lot. It's definitely a luxury brand.
What's the reason why this is your least favorite?
One, even though I personally built a pretty successful clothing company, I'm just an investor at it now. It's called Water Apparel. I do love the clothing industry. I love clothing. That's how I got started in the business game, really. But the clothing business, it's more boring than most other businesses because it's just like an old business. There's nothing innovative about it, but it's a cool business. I also doing another project / venture in the clothing business that I'm not going to talk about yet, but I'm doing something in the suits industry, very high quality suits. I'm definitely deep into the clothing industry. I built my own clothing business into, I believe it was 7 figures in annual revenue. 7 figures, yeah. There's nothing particular innovative or special about it. It's just clothes. You know what I mean?
What's your next favorite? Let's continue.
His other businesses is the whiskey business, which I like more. Vice industry, the cool thing about alcohol, stuff like that, is that it generates its own demand. When, like, you don't really need to advertise alcohol too much to somebody that likes alcohol because they're already like alcohol. So, like, I think one of the primary reasons why Proper 12 did so well so fast and sold for 600 mil in a few years is because it's a vice business. And in the vice business, you don't need to sell it that much. So if you see Proper 12 at a bar and you're into whiskey, you're probably going to try Proper 12 just because you know about it. So it's a very, very easy sell. When you have a solid vice business in, cigarettes, alcohol, stuff like that, you don't really need to be too pushy about it. It kind of generates its own demand. These are wonderful businesses where the product kind of sells itself. I've never seen like commercials on TV for it. I've never saw ads on it online. I just saw Conor talk about it and it went up to 600 mil. And the final business that I'm like a big fan of is McGregor Fast. So McGregor Fast, I don't know how much he sells of it. He had a big boost in traffic in January 2021 on his McGregor Fast website, probably because he beat Donald Cerrone. So listen to this. In January 2021, he has an estimated 200,000 visits. In February 2021, he has an estimated 55,000 visits. In January, it was 200,000. In February, it was 55,000. And he lost to Poirier. But notice how in fight months, his traffic skyrockets. And so it's 4x higher in January versus February. 4x.
Can you explain what he sells? I don't know this business.
McGregor Fast is a digital-based fitness program. It's an automated app and website for fitness.
Where does he promote this? I've never seen this before. And I've watched every one of his
all the time on Instagram, on his YouTube channels, on YouTube videos, in his press conference. He talks about it all the time. But notice how in January the traffic is 4x higher than a non-fight month. That could be a coincidence.
No, probably not.
That could be outside variables. We don't know for sure, but it's not coincidental. He would make ideally or an estimated 4x more revenue during fight months.
When it's a subscription service?
It's a subscription service for about $99 a year.
Okay, so the big thing about fitness in January, being that my whole life revolved around it for a while, everyone starts, I mean, you know this, right? If you go to the gym, everyone starts their fitness journey in January too. So it's a huge variable to have a fight in January and know that everyone's going to try and get fit for the year in January.
That's an excellent analysis. Yeah, that's a great point. I completely forgot that. I personally work with multiple fitness businesses, multiple very successful fitness businesses. All of them see a clear spike in revenue in January time. But generally speaking, January is probably the best month for the fitness industry, period. A Poirier fight plus it's January. They saw a huge increase in business in January. But the reason why I love these businesses is because they're generally zero headache. You need a small team to sustain it. Once you do it once, there's zero cost of duplication. So with clothes, you got to keep printing clothes. You got to deal with high margin returns. In the clothing business, the returns are a huge factor. Like in the clothing business, the most important factor is the return rate. If your return rate is too high, the entire business will collapse. So when you do the profit margins in the clothing industry, the return rate is a requirement. It is not an estimation. It is a requirement to know your return rate, because the return rate in the clothing industry is so unbelievably high, so high, that you need to know it in order to have a profitable business. It's a very high return rate. The whiskey business is cool. There are some cons, like you talked about. You don't want to do something that's addictive to some people. It doesn't make you feel good. But generally speaking, I think his whiskey business is fine. There are some downsides of the vice business, of course, like we talk about, but his clothing business and his whiskey business are great. Obviously, his fighting is my favorite thing, but his fourth main business, the McGregor Fast program, it might not be his biggest moneymaker. His whiskey business probably makes more money. His clothing business might make more money, but his fast program is just the coolest business in my opinion.
So let's talk about that, because I was thinking about it. You said January of 2021, people subscribed for a year, right? You have 200,000 visits or 200,000 buys?
Visits,
okay.
Let's say he has a 1% conversion rate. That's 2,000 people.
Knowing McGregor, he probably has more than a 1% conversion rate on something like that.
Yeah, that's actually a great point.
Yeah, if it's monthly though, it comes out to some big numbers. So I was thinking 200,000 subscribers, which is $20 million a year, which is a ridiculous amount of money. But let's say even if he gets 5,000 subscribers in January and then 2,000 every other month, that's 30,000 subscribers over the course of a year.
I think it's a 7-figure business, but keep in mind,
that's $3 million a year just off that.
Keep in mind, digital businesses tend to have smaller teams. Once the program is done, you just need to worry about maintenance and upkeep and small improvements and iteration. So the profit margins for this business are probably the highest, if not on par with the whiskey business. Alcohol margins are super high, but it's just a great business. You don't have to deal with shipping, logistics, trucks, too many lawyers, too many accountants, too much overhead, warehouses, factories, bottles, the cons of the vice business. With the McGregor Fast program, it's completely digital. The upkeep is relatively easy. It's just a really cool business. And even if it makes only 7 figures in revenue, which it probably does, I wouldn't be surprised. That 7 figures, half of that is profit. So it's a clean 7 figures of passive income, something along those lines.
Did it launch in January of 2021 as well?
No, dude, it's been around for years.
So I'm going to look into it, and I'm going to get super fit, and then it'll be all because of McGregor Fast. And then you can see me go from fat to fit with McGregor Fast, and we'll get sponsored by McGregor.